Every asylum case boils down to 3 critical questions. Answer these questions well, and you've got a strong shot at winning asylum. Answer them poorly, and your case will likely be denied. Today, I'm going to reveal these 3 questions and explain exactly what the asylum officer needs to hear from you. And we're starting right now. I'm Brian Manning, and I used to be an asylum officer with the government, but now, as an asylum lawyer, well, I help immigrants all over the country to secure their future in America through asylum. Let me know in the comments if you've got an asylum case pending, or maybe you're considering applying. And listen, I'd especially like to hear from you if you've been waiting for an asylum interview with USCIS for multiple years. Let me know in the comments how long you've been waiting. All right, you need to understand that asylum officers are taught that there are 3 main things that they need to assess in determining whether you qualify for asylum. The entire asylum interview, in fact, is structured to focus on these 3 critical areas, and knowing what they are will help you to prepare to explain your case in an impactful way. Now, the first crucial question in any asylum case is, what happened to you? When I was an asylum officer, this was where I always started. You see, asylum officers need to know if you've suffered what is called past persecution, harm that's severe enough to qualify you for asylum. The officer wants to know if there's been physical or psychological harm, and if so, they've got to determine whether it's sufficiently grave to count as persecution in the way that this term is defined under US asylum law. So you've got to be ready to explain any such harm, and to do so in detail. You see, it's not enough to just say, well, they beat me or they threatened me. No. You've got to provide specific details. The officer will want to know exactly how many times you were harmed. They'll ask who did it. Were they from the government, like maybe police or military, or instead were they private citizens? What exactly did they do to you? Like, where on your body did they strike you? What did they hit you with? How many times? Did you suffer injuries? Did you need medical treatment? And if so, what kind and for how long? I cannot stress enough how important it is to be detailed in describing these incidents. You need to explain what the persecutors were wearing, how many there were, what weapons they had, if any, and importantly, what they said before, during, and after any such incident. Their words often reveal their motives, which we'll discuss more in just a minute. Don't forget about psychological harm. Threats, intimidation, and harassment can count as persecution if it's severe enough. And if you've suffered depression, anxiety, or PTSD, for example, because of what you've been through, or if you've had to seek mental health treatment, this is all important to mention. And even if you haven't sought professional help, explaining how the trauma has affected you, like maybe causing nightmares or making you afraid to leave your house, well, this can help establish the severity of the harm. By the way, if you want to maximize your chances for asylum success, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so that you don't miss the insights that I share on this channel. Okay, the second critical question in every asylum case is, what makes you think someone will harm you in the future? Even if terrible things happened in the past, you almost always still need to convince the officer that you're at risk of future persecution. Now, there are some circumstances under which you can win asylum based just on past persecution without the prospect of future persecution, but that's rare. I can't tell you how many cases I saw denied because the applicant could not articulate why they were still in danger. The burden is on you to convince the asylum officer that there's a so-called reasonable possibility that you're going to be harmed in the future, in a way that would be sufficiently severe to constitute persecution. So you need to point to any words used by the feared persecutors, as well as any circumstances generally that show that you're still at risk. So for example, have you received recent threats? Are there circumstances at all showing that you're still at risk? What's happening to other people like you in your country? Has anything changed that makes you even more vulnerable now? Irrespective of whether you've been harmed in the past, the officer wants to know about any specific facts that show you would be in grave danger right now in your country. One effective way to demonstrate future risk is to point to what's happening to others who share your characteristics. So, for example, if you're being targeted for your political views, showing that others from your political party are currently being persecuted, well, that can help prove that you'd be at risk too. Country conditions reports from reliable sources can be particularly helpful here, and an asylum lawyer can help you leverage this information by giving it context in a legal brief. All right, with that, we're ready for the third most important question. Why are you being targeted? This is what we call the nexus requirement. You see, to win asylum, it's not enough just to show that you've been persecuted or that you're likely to be persecuted in the future. Rather, you must show that the persecution is on account of the fact that you possess one of the 5 protected characteristics under US asylum law. You've got to show that the persecutors are motivated to harm you because of your race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or something called membership in a particular social group. Now, these are called the protected grounds or protected characteristics under US asylum law. It bears repeating, it's not enough to show that bad things happened to you. You've got to prove that these things happened because you possess one of these protected characteristics. And this is where the persecutor's words become crucial evidence. What did they say when they harmed or threatened you? Did they mention, for example, your religion, your political views, or something else about you that fits within these categories? Now, sometimes the connection isn't obvious. Maybe the persecutors didn't explicitly say why they're targeting you. In these cases, you need to look at the broader context. Who else are they targeting? What's the pattern? What circumstances suggest that your protected characteristic is motivating them? Of course, there are other important elements to consider for an asylum claim. For example, if your persecutors aren't government actors, you must prove the authorities either can't or won't protect you, like if the police ignored your reports, or maybe they're even working with the bad guys. The officer will ask you if you could safely relocate within your own country and whether that would be reasonable given your situation. This is called internal relocation. And if you pass through other countries en route to the United States, well, you'll need to show that you didn't have permanent residence in any of those countries and that you weren't offered it either. But listen, these are honestly secondary considerations. The heart of every asylum case comes down to the three questions that we've addressed in detail today. What happened? Which goes to the past persecution element. Why do you think it'll happen again, or why are you at risk in the future? This is the well-founded fear element, which is basically asking whether you're likely to be harmed in the future. It's all about future persecution. And finally, why are you being targeted? This is getting at the nexus requirement, where you've got to show that the persecutors are motivated by one of the 5 protected grounds under the law. You've got to focus on preparing clear, detailed answers to these questions, supported by evidence whenever possible. Listen, you can actually drastically improve your chances for success by providing written case materials ahead of time that thoroughly and convincingly address these 3 key issues. You also need to prepare diligently, indeed intensively, for your asylum interview. If you're ready to take the next step and get help with your asylum case, then call my office today. That number is 713-909-0401. And remember, we help people all over the country, so it doesn't matter where you live. Call us now to schedule an asylum strategy session so that we can help you secure your future in America through asylum. Again, I'm Brian Manning, and it's an honor to serve you in your asylum journey.